Okay, welcome back everybody to another video on the channel. Today is Tuesday. We're going to be reading some Breslov history stories that happened between Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Nosson and Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, the Berditchever. So we're going to be reading from a sefer called Siach Sarfei Kodesh, which is Breslov history and different information that's gathered from all different sources, and also stuff that we already know from other Sfarim and other stuff that's not printed yet. And there's a few stories here that we're going to read, and also a few stories from Rabbi Mordechai of Chernobyl and Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Nosson too. So let's just start reading, right? So it says over here that Rabbeinu met the Rav of Berditchev, and they were together in a mesibas of tzaddikim. There was a lot of tzaddikim were all together, and everybody there was nispalu kulam from Rabbi Nachman, very very much. They were all in awe of Rabbi Nachman, and they saw how great he was. And there's a whole entire story about this, which is not printed over here, but I think it's printed in Chaim Moran. But it talks about it a little bit further on. So let's keep on going. What it says over here, it says that when the tzaddikim gathered by the Berditchever, right, there was a time when they wanted to put the Shpola Zeda, the Zakin, in Cherem, because of the machlokes that was going on between him and Rabbi Nachman, which we have spoken about before in some of these videos. It was a very very big problem for Rabbi Nachman that the Shpola was against him. And so they had a whole entire meeting with a lot of big tzaddikim, and the Berditchever was in charge of it. And Rabbi Nachman was there as well, I think. And they wanted to put the Shpola in Cher. Okay, so it says over here that at the time of this meeting, as it's said over in Sefer Chaye Moran, right? You could read over there, Ayin Sham. It says that the meeting was eventually, it didn't work out. It was Nispalbel. Because why? Because the Zakin, I never saw this before, this is very wild. It says that the Zakin went into the kitchen where the Berditchever's mother was there, and he started playing with fire in front of the mother of the Berditchever. And she was so scared that she thought that he was going to burn down the whole entire city, that she went in to this meeting of all these big tzaddikim, and she said, "You should, we have to stop this because he's going to burn down the everything." And afterwards, Rabbi Nachman said that you could say to the Berditchever, maybe Rabbi Nachman wasn't there, but afterwards, maybe whatever, they weren't in the same room or whatever. Rabbi Nachman said that you could say to the Berditchever that he said to the people of the city of Berditchev that this year the Berditchever is already not going to be able to say before the Tekiyas on Rosh Hashanah. He used to say all the names of different angels that he would he would see. Right? Every year before Tekiyas Shofar on Rosh Hashanah, the Berditchever would say certain names of certain angels that he would see. Right? And because of this thing that happened with the Shpola or whatever, he's not going to be able to see. And it was true that year he didn't say the names. So Rabbi Nachman knew what was going on in the things. So that's a pretty wild story of the Shpola Zeda. Another time over here, it says, it just gathered up little different sources. So here is from a piece from Yemei Mornat, which is Rabbi Nosson's autobiography. So he says, this summer in the year of Tav Kuf Samach Vav, I was in Berditchev. This is now Rabbi Nosson talking with my friend Rabbi Naftali, because Rabbi Nachman told us to go there. Right? He told us to go there, to go to the Rav HaGoyen HaChosid Av based in Kehilas Berditchev. Right? We came there on Shabbos. Also, the Misnagid Hagadol Shah Rabbeinu, which was the Zakin Hayedua Mishpola, he also came for Shabbos, right? And it was, and Rabbi Naftali got very nervous that maybe we should, not be there for Shabbos if the what's it called is going to be there, if the Shpola was there, right? Because we shouldn't sit with a person who hates Rabbi Nachman, right? But I, Rabbi Nassan, stood my ground, and he said, Adarabba, we have to be here so that we could be by the Berditchev, and we could defend Rabbi Nachman. If this guy wants us, if the Shpol wants to start talking bad about Rabbi Nachman, we could what's it called? We could defend Rabbi Nachman. But we hope that that he's not going to say anything in front of the Berditchev, right? Because the Berditchev was not against Rabbi Nachman at all. So we were like, basically Rabbi Nassan is saying that they were hoping that the Shpola would not say anything and try to convince Rabbi Levi Yitzchak to be against Rabbi Nachman, right? He was actually a friend of Rabbi Nachman, the Berditchev. He loved Rabbi Nachman, and he also liked us. As is known, Rabbi Nassan was following the Berditchev before he went to Rabbi Nachman. So fine, they were there for Shabbos by the Berditchev, and also the Shpola was there by Shabbos Shacharis, and he didn't say anything. Right, and then by the meal we sat across from him on the table, and he saw us, and he knew that we were from Rabbi Nachman, right? But there was great fear on him, and he looked like a stone. He couldn't say anything because he was scared to talk. Baruch Hashem shehevdilonu min hatoyim, and that we're part of Rabbi Nachman. Right, Baruch Hashem. Basically saying it's good that we're not against Rabbi Nachman. So that was also a time that the Shpola tried something, but he was not able to because Rabbi Nassan and Rabbi Naftali were there. Another time, it says over here, this is a story that is known. It says over here, it says that one time Rabbi Nassan and Rabbi Naftali came to be by Rabbi Nachman, and Rabbi Nachman said to them, you should go to Berditchev, right? You should just go. So they said, okay. And he didn't say why, he just said to go. Right? So they went there, and when they went there, this is like a different story. This is the same thing also. They went there also, they realized that the Shpola was there too. Right? And they realized that Rabbi Nachman sent them there to defend him. Right? To defend Rabbi Nachman and to protect his name. B'yoshvu, and again, this is not the same story, but they also again sat across the table. The Berditchev was there, and the Shpola was there, and again across from the Shpola sat Rab Nassan and Rab Naftali. And the Berditchev asked him in front of the Shpola. He says, "Is it true what they say about your Rebbe, that if you drink whiskey before davening, that you're going to daven better?" Right. So right away when Rabbi Naftali heard this, right, he said, and he grabbed onto the sleeves, onto the coat of the Berditchev, and he said, "You also believe this? You also believe this stuff?" Mm-hmm. And the Berditchev said, "Nine, no." He said, he pointed to the Shpola. He says, "He said it, not me." Right. And Rabbi Naftali and Rabbi Nassan were able to defend Rabbi Nachman by saying to the Berditchev rabbis, "Yeah, this is not true. That this is complete sheker." And the Berditchev agreed with them, and he was masking to them. And obviously, I guess the Shpola was very embarrassed. Achakach, when they went outside, Rabbi Naftali said that if he would have spoken, I guess he's talking about the Shpola's aid, that even one word against Rabbi Nachman, right? I wouldn't have thought twice. I would have given a nice little slap across the face, even in front of the Berditchev. And it says over here that the Rav of Berditchev was very nispoil ma'oid from Rabbi Naftali, and that he was so ready to defend his Rebbe, and he said afterwards that he said that Rabbi Nachman has great people, who will protect him and defend him. So that's that. This story was told Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Bender. Mordechai bar Bernitzer heard this from Rabbi bar Nachman, and he told this over to Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Bender. Okay, another piece. Atzadik HaKadosh hape'er hador v'hadoire halehu harav hakodesh mi Berditchev. Right, it says over here that he would start his davening right away. That you're able to start davening. The earliest time you could start davening in the morning, before Nates even, he would start praying, right? And he had such an avodah in davening that from then early in the morning it would take him the whole entire time until already after Zman Tefillah, which is like 4 or 5 hours. That's when he would finally get up to Shmon Esrei. And he would say, I start praying, and then I get into major devekis, and I can't stop. So that's what it is. But even still, that he had such great devekis, afal pikein lo yiskimu imoy hagdolim davar zeh. The gedolim were not maskim with him in this matter to daven after the Zman Tefillah. And also Rabbi Nachman it's known from Rabbi Nachman that the tzaddikim shoygim bezeh shema'achrim Zman Tefillah, that many tzaddikim made a mistake that they daven pretty late. That it's talked about in Sefer Chaim Moran. Right, so Rabbi Nachman was not into him davening late, but that's what the Berditchev did. All right, a few more stories over here. It says in the last few years of the life of the Berditchev, the Rav would go around in different cities. One time, Rav Nosson came to Rabbi Nachman on a Shabbos, and he said to Rabbi Nachman that the Berditchev is going on the way right now. Oh, Rabbi Nachman said to Rav Nosson that the Berditchev is going on the way. And he said, should regular people be the one to serve him? You go serve him. You go be Mishamish the Tzaddik. And so, of course, Rav Nosson listened to his Rebbe, and he went to the Rav of Berditchev, and he took care of him on the way and helped him with his travels for a few weeks. It says over here that Rav Nosson was noyeg to always, whenever he would enter into a new city, he would always go to the mikveh before entering that city. Right, one time when he was going with the Berditchev, right, they came to a certain city. But now, if Rav Nosson would go off to go to the mikveh, right, so then the Rav would have to enter the city by himself without a shamish, or he would have to be delayed, and this is not covered for a tzaddik, right? So what did he do? Here they were going up a hill to go into the city, right? So the wagon had to go very, very slow. So Rav Nosson went very, very fast down from the wagon, and he went to the Beis HaTefillah where the mikveh was, that was outside the city. It says over here in a footnote, according to Rabbi Yitzchak Bender, it says that in many cities in Ukraine back then the mikveh was built outside the city. They would build like at the bottom of the city, at the bottom, like a lot of cities were on hills, so they would build at the bottom of the hill, right? So that's why Rav Nosson was able to find the mikveh outside the city, if you were thinking about that. So Rav Nosson ran out from the wagon, and he went in, and he toiveled super fast. And finally, when the wagon and the horses got to the top of the mountain, Rav Nosson was already waiting there afterwards. And so he did this so that the Rav of Berditchev would not have to wait for him at all. That's how much respect they have for each other. And the Rav saw this, and he praised him a lot for doing this. And this was this also was the same city that there was a story that they were praying in a shul, and the Rav of Berditchev was praying in his way that he used to pray with screaming and a lot and loud voices and clapping and devekis and all of his chassidim. And Rav Nosson was standing there also davening with a lot of his slavos, and the Rabbi of the shul came to Rav Nosson, and he said, "Stop screaming! You're like he didn't realize that he was part of the Berditchev Chavra." So he said, "Stop screaming! You're bothering the Rav." And the Rav of Berditchev heard this, and he said to the Rabbi, "Maybe I am confusing him. Maybe I'm bothering him." and Rabbi Nassim continued davening the way that he was davening. So again, we see that they had a lot of respect for each other. They were both big tzaddikim, and they respected each other a lot. Yesh oid harbe gedolos v'neflois l'saper me'inin hashimish shimish osmor natis Rabbi Berditchev. There's a lot of more stories to say over about Rabbi Nassim and the Berditchever. But they both saw that they were both tzaddikim, and that they were very, very. The Berditchever was very close to Breslov, to Rabbi Nachman, to Rabbi Nassim. Hold on. It says that the Berditchever loved Rabbi Nassim a lot, that he used to call him my Nasala. Like he would had a little, cute little name for him, and they were very, 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 very close to each other. Rabbi Nassim one time said about the Berditchever, he said that the pshatim that he says in Gemara that I heard from him, right? These are very, very deep pshatim, and I never heard anybody else say anything like it. Says Rabbi Nachman said after the Berditchever died, right, that the Hasidim wanted to hide it from him. They wanted to hide this fact from Rabbi Nachman that the Berditchever died. How do you want to hide it from me? They already know about this in Eretz Yisrael. This is from Rabbi Yisrael Karduner, from the Sefer Emunas Umat. I think there was a story, isn't there like a story where like Rabbi Nachman was, he already knew about it when he was giving over the lesson in Likutei Amran. I think that's in Chaim on Simon Pei Dalet. Maybe we'll look that up. Anyway, that's some of the stories between Rabbi Nassim and Rabbi Nachman and the Berditchever. We see that there was great love between them, and that the Berditchever was on Rabbi Nachman's side during all the different people who were against Rabbi Nachman and everything like that. Here we have a story about Rav Mordechai of Chernobyl, who we know there was a story. Obviously, there was, I think, one of his grandchildren married one of Rabbi Nachman's grandchildren or something, but there's definitely a connection between Chernobyl and Breslov also a little bit. There's a machlokes too, but I'm not going to get into that. But anyway, this is one nice story over here about Chernobyl and Breslov, and then we'll be finished for the day. It says over here that Rabbi Yitzchak of Heisen, who we called Rabbi Itzla Heisener, Migdoyle Anshe Rav Nassim, he was one of Rav Nassim's biggest Hasidim. He was a very big tzaddik and a lamdan, and he was a very beautiful person. His son-in-law, or his father-in-law, was from the Anshe Rav Mordechai Hamagid of Chernobyl. And when it says over here that when Rabbi, sorry, let me just get the sefer back in focus over here. It says over here that when Rav Itzla got married, right, his father-in-law did not know that he was close to Rabbi Nachman, to Breslov, to Rav Nassim, right? After he got married, his father-in-law saw that he was learning Sefer Likutei Moharan, and he asked him about it. He says, "What's this?" And he says, "Chassid Breslov." He said, "I'm Breslov." So his father-in-law was like, "What?" He says, "No, it's not happening." He says, "Give my daughter a get right now." That's how much the intensity against Breslov was back then, by the way. So his father-in-law said to him, so they started fighting, whatever, until Rabbi Itzila said, he says, "I am a Breslov Chassid, I'm not leaving." He says, "I'm ready to give a get, right? And I'm not going to change because I'm Breslov. That's it." So his father-in-law tried to convince his daughter to take a get from him, from Rabbi Yitzchak, from Rabbi Itzila, but she was like, "No way." She said that he's a great tzaddik, he's a great husband, he's a great father, he's a great tzaddik. I'm saying, "I'm not going to find another person like this. Why should I get divorced?" So they made a deal, that when the Maggid of Chernobyl comes, Rabbi Mordechai of Chernobyl comes to their city of Heisen, right? Because he used to come there to speak to them or whatever. They're going to go to him, and whatever the Chernobyler says, that's what we're going to do. So Rabbi Mordechai of Chernobyl came to Heisen, and Rabbi Yitzchak's father-in-law, who was against Breslov, came to him with his kvittel. And in the kvittel was written his taina, that he took Rabbi Yitzchak for a son-in-law, for his daughter, and didn't know that he was a Breslover chassid. And now I see that he's learning Sefer Likutei Moharan. So Rabbi Mordechai of Chernobyl looked in the kvittel. He turned to the shamish, and he said to him, "Klovna, give me na dem Likutei Moharan." Klovna, that was the name of the shamish, by the way, which is a pretty tripped out name. Klovna, bring me my Sefer Likutei Moharan. And the shamish bought the Sefer Likutei Moharan. And the Chernobyl turned to the father-in-law of Rabbi Yitzchak. He said to him in Yiddish, a lot of Yiddish. He says over here, in my house, I have shiurim kivuim b'liman ha'torah yoser men shiurim ha'kivuim sheyesh li k'shani nimtza b'derech machmas ha'terach. Right? The Chernobyl said this following, said obviously when I'm in my house and I'm learning, I have greater, I'm learning a lot in my house, and I have certain shiurim that I learn all the time in my house, more so than when I'm on the way, because when you're on the way, it's harder to learn, right? But the Sefer Likutei Moharan, this is a Sefer that I have a share that I do even when I'm going on the way. That means that the Chernobyl learned Likutei Moharan in his house, and even when he was going on the way, when he was missing out certain shiurim that he was doing, he would still learn that Sefer. And you're going to come to me and give me a kvittel that this guy should get divorced because he's learning Likutei Moharan? And he said these last words with a great kipeda and a great big voice. And his father-in-law was silent and realized that it's okay. And Rabbi Levi Yitzchak says this story was told to Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Bender by Rabbi Yecheskel Heschel Grishinov Sheshama Mechoisner Rav Yitzchak. Well, okay, so that's how we know. And there's a footnote here that from Rabbi Yitzchak Bender again. It says that if the Chernobyl Maggid was learning Likutei Moharan in his house, and even when he was on the way, he would learn it. So he said for sure, then we who are Breslover Chassidim need to learn these svarim even more all the time. So that's pretty crazy stuff. All right, that's what we're doing right now. Hope you enjoyed and got some information. Try to continue on next week or maybe later on this week with some more stories. Have a good day.